Vuitton is a big deal in the world of fancy clothes and accessories. It's actually the most valuable brand in that market. The boss of Louis Vuitton, Bernard Arnault, is seriously rich too. He's the second richest guy in the world with about $180 billion in his bank account. But it wasn't always glitz and glam. Louis Vuitton, the guy who started the whole thing, wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Far from it. He was homeless as a teenager, had no proper schooling, and even slept in a forest. It hasn't been a smooth ride for the company. There have been plenty of bumps along the way, like an attempted hostile takeover, a bunch of legal cases, and a fair share of scandals. How did he transform a small family venture that grew into the now dominant international brand Louis Vuitton? Louis Vuitton was born in 1821, in a tiny, out-of-the-way village in France called Arnault. This wasn't some fancy place. We're talking no electricity, no running water. His dad, Xavier, was a miller and a farmer, and his mom, Corinne, made hats to scrape together a bit of extra cash. No records suggest that Louis ever went to school. The closest one was a 6-mile trek away, and it looks like Louis worked full-time on the family's farm, probably without learning to read or write. Most of his days would have been spent from sunup to sundown, toiling away in the fields, just to keep his family fed. Money was always tight, and it seemed like young Louis was dealt a pretty rough hand. When Louis was only 10, things took a tragic turn. His mom passed away. His dad remarried pretty quickly, but his new stepmom was hard to live with, controlling, manipulative, and they fought a lot. So at just 13, Louis decided he had enough. He left home in the middle of the night, planning to head to Paris. But there was a hitch. Paris was a whopping 225 miles away, and Louis had nothing. No money, no food. He was left to walk along dirt roads, sleeping in the forest, surviving off whatever food or coins he could earn from odd jobs in the villages he passed. It was a tough gig, but those odd jobs allowed Louis to learn from different craftsmen. He picked up how to work with metal, stone, fabric, and wood, a mixed bag of skills that would turn out to be a game changer for him. But even so, the journey was painfully slow. It took him 3 whole years to reach Paris. After he landed in Paris, Louis found a job making and packing boxes for clients, and it was a real up-close look at the high life. He worked with well-off people who needed personalized luggage for their trips. Louis stuck with this job for years, picking up all the tricks of the trade. In fact, in 1851, the Empress of France herself became one of his customers, and she was so impressed by his work that she made him her personal box maker and packer. It was a big deal for Louis, going from a kid with nothing sleeping on the streets to rubbing elbows with royalty. But Louis had bigger dreams. After he got married at 33, he used his savings to start his own business, opening a workshop in Paris to sell his own boxes. He noticed that the typical luggage had a problem. They were made of leather and had a rounded top, which meant they couldn't be stacked. Louis started playing around with other materials and found that canvas was not only lighter and more durable, it was also better at keeping water out. This meant he could make trunks with flat tops, which made them easier to stack and carry. This was a game changer, kicking off a whole new era for luggage. Having already made a name for himself and built up a good network among the high society crowd, Louis's new luggage line was an instant hit. He even put together a catalog so customers could see his products and have them made to order. Within 2 years, his suitcases were the must-have accessory for the rich and famous, with orders coming in from all over the world, even from royalty in places as far off as Egypt. In 1859, the profits were rolling in, and Louis was able to hire a team of craftsmen to help keep up with all the orders. He opened a new workshop just outside Paris and hired 20 employees. With more and more people starting to travel by train and boat, his potential customer base grew massively. Travel wasn't just for the rich anymore, and people from all walks of life were on the lookout for quality luggage. It seemed like Louis had it made and would be set for life, but it wasn't smooth sailing from there. France was on the brink of war, and Louis Vuitton was in for another rough patch. Back in 1870, when Louis hit 49, the Franco-Prussian War kicked off, and his world got turned upside down. He had to ditch his home and live in a packed shelter with tons of people. Food was in short supply, and danger was a constant. When the chaos of the war subsided in 1871, Louis found his beloved shop trashed, windows busted, equipment nicked, and the fruits of his labor vanished. But Louis wasn't one to back down. He dug into his savings to resurrect his business and promised himself it'd be even better than before. Since the war had left many folks homeless, there were a bunch of vacant shops across the city. Spotting an opportunity, Louis Vuitton set up his new shop in a posh part of Paris. The location was perfect, right near the train station and the Grand Hotel, which meant that travelers in need of luggage didn't have to travel far to reach Louis Vuitton's store. By the time 1872 rolled around, Louis unveiled a snazzy new design-striped luggage made from beige canvas. It was an instant hit, and even though other brands tried to imitate his style, the top-notch quality of an authentic Louis Vuitton bag kept customers coming back. Louis kept the business going in his new Paris shop for 2 decades until his death at 70. However, his legacy continued through his son Georges, who inherited the family business and aimed to take it global, opening a successful store in London. At this point, Louis Vuitton luggage had become so popular that knockoffs began to pop up. So in 1896, Georges Vuitton launched the now famous LV monogram to counteract this. The LV were the initials of his dad, in tribute to the man who laid the brand's foundation. Additionally, he came up with a game-changing lock for the trunks that made them a nightmare for any thief trying to pick them. As the 1900s began, the company had amassed a workforce of 100. Each employee underwent intensive training before they were trusted to craft one of the company's products, a practice that Louis Vuitton continues till today. Employees typically train for 18 months to 2 years before they get the green light. Then, thanks to another fashion legend, Coco Chanel, the company ventured into new territory. In 1925, she requested a small dome-shaped handbag. Initially, this was a design just for her, but it soon became a mass-produced item named Alma. This was a smashing success, leading Louis Vuitton to manufacture more compact leather bags like the Keepall, Speedy, and No. Louis Vuitton helped transform handbags from bulky and plain to sleek and stylish. Fast forward to 1936, Georges Vuitton passed away, and his son Gaston Louis took the reins during a pretty rough time. France was on the brink of war again. World War II brought many challenges. Contracts got axed and Gaston had to close the Louis Vuitton factory with Paris under siege once more. Gaston's only choice to salvage the business was a tough one, partnering up with Nazi Germany. This dark chapter of the company's history was unearthed by author Stéphanie Bonvicini in her book Louis Vuitton, A French Saga. When she asked to view the World War II records during her research, the company reps were pretty evasive, claiming a fire had destroyed all documents from 1930 to 1945. But Bonvicini's deep dive into other historical records revealed that Louis Vuitton managed to operate a swanky shop in the Hôtel du Parc during the Nazi regime thanks to their collaboration, while other brands that refused to cooperate were forced to close. Evidently, the company isn't proud of this part of their past. They'd say Gaston did what he had to in order for the company to survive. Other designers, like Coco Chanel, also teamed up with the Nazis to ensure their businesses in Paris weren't obliterated. Without such difficult decisions, these brands might not exist today. When Gaston passed away in 1970, the leadership of the Louis Vuitton brand fell into the hands of his son-in-law, Henri Racamier. This fourth-generation boss was not like his predecessors. He already had a ton of business experience from running a previous company. So when he stepped into the shoes of Louis Vuitton's leadership, he was ready to shoot the brand into the stratosphere. Henri didn't waste time turning things around at Louis Vuitton, morphing it from a family-owned outfit into a massive corporate giant. One of the big changes he made was shifting the company's business model from wholesale to retail. By 1978, he'd taken the brand global, reaching out to places like Japan. In just 6 years, the company's sales shot up from $20 million to a staggering $260 million. Riding this wave of success, Henri took the company public in 1984. Louis Vuitton's initial stock offering of 1 million shares, priced at $63.63 each, was a sellout. Flush with cash and ambition, Henri opened more stores worldwide. By 1987, the company's sales had hit the billion-dollar mark, a feat that young Louis could have only dreamt of when he opened his humble Paris store. Seeing an opportunity to take things even further, Henri decided to merge the company with Moet Hennessy, a luxury liquor brand known for its champagne and cognac. The resulting conglomerate, LVMH, was envisioned as a powerhouse that would capitalize on shared resources for rapid expansion, but all wasn't rosy. Post-merger, Henry and the president of Moet Hennessy didn't see eye to eye. Looking for a way out, Henry sought the help of a successful property developer, Bernard Arnault. He was brought in as an investor, but this move would backfire spectacularly. Bernard stealthily bought 43% of Louis Vuitton's shares and got the backing of the Moet and Hennessy families to gain more influence in LVMH. Feeling betrayed by the friend he'd trusted, Henry took Bernard to court demanding he relinquish his majority stake in Louis Vuitton. But the court ruled in favor of Bernard, leading to a disgruntled Henry severing all ties with Louis Vuitton. For the first time in almost a century, there was no Vuitton family member involved in the brand. Following the dramatic hostile takeover by Bernard, Louis Vuitton's sales started to slump, and the brand fell out of favor with the media. It seemed like the company was on the brink of collapse. However, Bernard managed to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Louis Vuitton made a grand comeback during its 100th anniversary collection, collaborating with top-tier fashion designers like Vivienne Westwood and Isaac Mizrahi. These designers injected fresh life into the iconic LV monogram logo, creating unique pieces that reignited the public's fascination with the brand. In the end, Bernard's risky move turned out to be a jackpot. As of 2021, Bernard, who's now the CEO of LVMH, was declared by Forbes as the richest man on Earth, with a net worth surpassing $180 billion. His spot on the richest people's list might fluctuate as stocks ebb and flow, but he's often found rubbing shoulders with the top 5 wealthiest people. Bernard is quite a contrast to high-profile billionaires like Bezos, Musk, Gates, and Buffett. Preferring to stay away from the limelight, he's often the least known among this elite group. But don't let that fool you. Bernard's got a reputation for being a ruthless business shark, earning him the nickname Wolf in Cashmere. Today, LVMH owns over 70 diverse luxury brands, thanks to the series of mergers and acquisitions executed by Bernard. It's quite a journey for a brand that started with a homeless teenager. Louis Vuitton didn't stop at bags. They constantly evolved and stayed relevant to modern times. This vision took a significant leap in 1997 when Marc Jacobs stepped in as the creative director. He introduced the first ready-to-wear line and the widely loved monogram Vernus line of handbags. Marc's influence extended to watches, jewelry, and sunglasses, but eventually, he parted ways with Louis Vuitton to create his own brand of clothing and accessories. Now, being a major global brand doesn't come without hiccups. Louis Vuitton has had its fair share of legal battles over copyright infringement. They've got a squad of legal eagles constantly on the lookout for any misuse of their brand logo. They've even taken Google to court over search results and ads directing people to counterfeit bags. However, Google came out victorious in this legal standoff, claiming they can't police what users post online. Louis Vuitton has also successfully tapped into new demographics by collaborating with other brands, like Supreme. Interestingly, Louis Vuitton had initially sued Supreme for copying their logo, but when they saw the potential in a joint venture, they embraced the opportunity. The resulting Louis Vuitton Supreme line became a big hit, with items like the leather trunk and the LV Supreme hoodie fetching astronomical prices of $125,000 and over $5,000 respectively. Despite all their growth and success, Louis Vuitton still grapples with one age-old problem: counterfeiting. They reckon they lose hundreds of millions of dollars annually to fake products bearing their name, but that hasn't dampened their spirit. After a whopping 168 years in business, they are far from hitting the brakes. Louis Vuitton remains a coveted brand that many people dream of owning. It's a common sight among the well-heeled and celebrities. Right now, Louis Vuitton sits atop the fashion world, boasting a staggering value of $39 billion and more than 400 stores spread across major cities worldwide. So what's your take on Louis Vuitton? Do you think it's all hype and overpriced? Or do the quality and craftsmanship justify the hefty price tags? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching. If you stayed till the end, you're a legend.